3 months ago, my guest was attacked, kidnapped and held at gunpoint in Borneo after investigating illegal logging operations. Her companion was severely beaten. It's not quite all in her normal day's work, but she does court trouble, belonging to the Environmental Investigation Agency and involved in undercover operations around the world. How many of her 9 lives has she already used up? Faith Doherty, a very warm welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
Environmental investigations, are they worth dying for?
On a personal level, if you're asking me, no. Of course, one doesn't go into wanting to expose corruption and
But you're not going in to make friends, are you?
No, but one does actually make a lot of friends when in this kind of field, because you're meeting lots of different types of people. The most courageous and brave people are those who investigate in their own backyard.
But the thugs, talk about the thugs.
Not nice people. Not nice people.
You do
at
put
all.
yourself at risk. You do put yourself right in the lion's den, don't you?
Yes, I mean, in order to get the evidence of something that is very wrong, you can't play with that. We're talking about exposing crime. And in this case, it was a crime of huge magnitude. You're talking about a national park, something that belongs to the people of Indonesia, and something that
being cut down illegally.
Illegally logging in the national park. It's a very famous park because of its main inhabitants, which are the orangutan, who are under enormous threat by the logging. And the more we investigated the situation, the more we found that it wasn't just about logging. It was about money and power, and that's what we came up against, and that's why I think what happened to us happened.
Why you?
Why me?
Yes.
In that situation?
No, why do you put yourself in harm's way?
I don't put myself in harm's way deliberately.
Are you fatalistic about it?
I've been asked that before, and I don't really know what it means. I do my job. It's a lifestyle, yes. It's not something that you start at 9 in the morning and finish at 5 at night.
So it's more than a job?
Very much more than a job. I think for me, on a personal level, it's very much about a belief, and that belief is that there are good people that live on this planet, and in the job that I do, I have the immense privilege of meeting and working with those people. And yes, we come up against baddies, and yes, there is a threat and a risk. But the positive side of it is that I've been involved in many, many issues where I've seen change, and I've seen growth, and for myself as well, not just for a country and other people, but I get a lot out of it too. It's not a martyred position at all.
But you're unable, so to speak, to walk by on the other side of the road if you see something
I was taught
in
by
environmental terms?
No, I was taught by my family at a very young age that one must take responsibility for one's place on this planet. And if you have information about something that is wrong, then it is a personal choice as to whether you choose to ignore it or whether you choose to act on it. And in this case, I choose to act on it.
Before we talk about the specific things that happened to you earlier this year, tell me about the Environmental Investigation Agency. Who supports it? Who set it up?
Well, it's a wonderful organisation, very unique in this country anyway, that there is no other organisation that does the kind of work that we do. It was set up 16 years ago by 3 people who are still directors of the organisation and are still investigators themselves and very involved. And it was initially one of the first issues that they tackled was the ivory trade and the whole situation in Africa with elephants and the ivory. And to this day, I mean, there's a team of EIA people out in Nairobi battling away at CITES to stop the elephant from being downlisted from Appendix 1 to Appendix 2.
Battling away with undercover operations, surveillance equipment. But you do use all that, don't you?
Yes and no. I mean, I do think people sort of think that this sort of job is incredibly exciting and it's all, as you see on television with cops and robbers. Most of the time, it's dead boring. I mean, you're sitting in hotel rooms waiting for phone calls or waiting to meet people. And yes, when you're in the field, that is exciting because you're actually there in the area or the place where the crimes are being committed, and
so you get a buzz.
You get a sense of it, and you get to understand an issue with more depth when you're actually right in the middle of it, as opposed to, you know, standing on the sidelines and being a commentator. And EIA is not about that at all. It's an organisation that is very much in the middle of an issue. And, you know, from illegal whaling to illegal logging to the illegal ivory trade, that's what the organisation does.
But you do enjoy the chase. That's part of it for you.
You know, the best bit is when you've actually, for me anyways, when you've actually got the evidence, so that you can then go to the authorities who 9 times out of 10 have an excuse as to why they haven't, you know, done it. And you can say, well, excuse me, I've actually got the evidence here. When are you going to do something about it? And when they don't move on it, that's when we go public. And that's when we kick in publicity and, you know, a public campaign where you'll hold a press conference or you'll go on telly and, you know, you'll just slam the people that are involved. But you must have the evidence. And that's the second level of campaigning that EIA gets to that most organisations don't. And
first the evidence, then the lobbying, then doing something with it. So you follow through, hopefully, until
absolutely,
until
we get a result. Yes, that's right. I mean, with the elephant issue, for example, the ivory issue, 16 years EIA has been involved in that. They're not letting that go.
January 20th this year. Started with a story, didn't it? Or it started with a report that you'd done into illegal logging operations. And you made the mistake of going back. Well, mistake, I said advisedly.
Not a mistake. In fact, we've been back many times since we'd launched the report. And
you went to the sawmills of a particular gentleman whom you suspected of being right in the centre of the illegal logging trade. So you put your head firmly in the lion's mouth.
Well, we did 2 things. First of all, we launched the report and everything went public, and we exposed, am I allowed to say his name? I exposed Mr. Rashid and the Tanjung Linga group. And we had the evidence of how they were illegally logging in Tanjung Puting National Park on a massive commercial basis. We're not just talking about little local people having some kind of sustainable life out there in the forest. This is a national park. People don't live in that national park, number one. Number two, that the size of the commercialism of this was enormous. We're talking about millions and millions of dollars. And
so you put out this report, which you know is going to be incredibly damaging to this operation, which you consider to be illegal. So you know you're not making any friends, and yet you go back in.
We went back in about 3 or 4 times, actually, since the release of the report. And when I say we went back in, we went into the park to monitor what was happening. Because you have to understand, at the time we released the report, Indonesia was in a transitional phase. We had President Habibie, you know, in charge of the country. And we knew very well that nothing would change quickly after the release of the report. But what we were trying to do was to, if you like, give a statement to the new government that was going to come on board. You have to deal with this, because the whole issue of illegal logging isn't just about illegal logging. If you read through the report that we put together, you'll see it is about corruption and nepotism and all those issues that unfortunately Indonesia is trying to get away from now.
Take me through that day, though. You go to the sawmills first.
No, we didn't. We started off going down the river where the sawmills are, and to have a look and see whether or not it was operational and what was going on. The reason we were there, I have to say, is because we had been invited by the World Bank to present our campaign at a forestry seminar. Now, this is very key to the kidnapping. To a forestry seminar in which the Indonesian cabinet was being invited and all the donor countries were being invited. Very high stakes. And we wanted to go back to get fresh material and to also be absolutely correct in what we would say to all of the people at the seminar with regard to the status of the park at the time.
So you go to the place where you suspect that you'll see wood that's been stolen.
Yep, we got to the sawmill, and I just want to preface it by saying that the previous day we had been up the rivers where you would normally be able to see the illegal logs, you know, being taken down on log rafts. And there was very, very little, and it looked like things were winding down. We were in a very positive mood on that first day, very positive. It was fabulous to go on a boat through the river and see the environment and the inhabitants of that environment merrily doing what they're supposed to be doing, and there was no signs.
Being left alone.
Yeah, and it was beautiful and stunning. So we were in a very, very positive mood on that.
So when you got to the
day.
sawmill, you asked to see somebody from the company.
We got to
There
the
was nobody
sawmill.
there.
No, we got to the sawmill, and we went. We had to walk along a boardwalk in order to get to the main office, where there was a security guard. And it was at that point I made the decision that we would expose who we were. And I said, I'm from EIA. This is my name. I've come here to speak with Mr. Rashid. I understand he's in town, and anyone else from the operation. We were very open about who we were. I felt at the time that it was the right choice to have made. And the
You
security...
must have doubted that later on.
Oh, many
considering
times,
what
so
happened to
many
you.
times. I've doubted every single thing we did that day, you know. And I mean, there's no point. I mean, it's interesting to go through it with yourself and to say, oh, Faith, that was a bad move, or that was a good move, you know. But at the time, you go with your instincts in a job like this, very much. And my instincts was saying, be open, don't hide.
You got back to your hotel,
Well, they said
and there were some men from the company
Yeah,
who
there
came
were-
to pick you up.
Yeah, we got back to the hotel, and we were in the room, and the phone rang, and it was a receptionist saying that 3 men were there from the company, and they'd come to pick us up in their car to go and see Mr. Rashid. That
All
he
very
wanted to see
friendly
it.
at
Very
that point.
friendly, very, very friendly. So I rang London, and I rang my director, Dave Curry, and I said, look, you know, this situation, I want to go with it. I think this is a good thing to do. I think the guy needs to talk. And Dave said, well, you're in the field, you make the decision, and which is the correct thing to do. But we all felt very positive at that point. There was some discussion about whether Rui, my colleague, should come or not, because he had been originally involved.
Being a local.
He wasn't a local from there, but yes, being an Indonesian. But the main point was that he and Dave had previously been involved in an undercover investigation with this company, whereby they posed themselves as buyers. And that was how we managed to get the information that we needed to prove that the company was involved in illegal logging.
So when you got back in the car,
Right, we got into the car. There was a central locking system. I didn't think about it at the time. I was actually quite fine. I really did not get any vibes that this was all going to go wrong. They drove us to the office, which takes about 10 minutes. We got out of the car, and there were a lot of people outside the front of the Tanjung Linger office, which is not unusual, and normally it's half the police force. You know, I mean, they own everybody. And we walked up 2 flights of stairs, and we walked into an office. Rui was in front of me, and I remember him standing there and physically sort of going back a bit and went, oh, and moving forward, and there was an L-shaped couch along the wall and to the door. And we walked in, and there was quite a young man sitting down in a chair, sort of here. The sofa was here. We were brought in and sat there, and a great big desk, of which a woman was sitting behind that desk.
how long before it turned nasty?
It didn't take long. It took about, I would say, maybe 15 to 20 minutes.
And then what happened?
Well, what happened was, a key moment was when Sugianto, who is the nephew and director of Tanjung Linger, said something to Rui in Indonesian. Now, there'd been quite a lot of, it was tense. I mean, it got tense, and they were very angry. And the way they were talking was in a very sort of aggressive manner. And prior to them losing the temper, I had said to them, I really think you should calm down. We've come here to see Mr. Rashid. Where is he?
But things didn't calm down.
They got worse and worse. And then there was this sort of going and throwing between Rui and Sugianto in Indonesian. And I don't speak fluent Indonesian, so I wasn't quite sure what was going on.
But the general manager, a woman, took off her shoe and started beating him.
Much later, Sugianto leapt up off the chair and just punched Rui and then started beating him. Rui fell onto the floor, and there was a glass table, and the corner of the glass table had cut his head as he had fallen forward.
So he was covered in blood.
He was covered in blood. He was lying on the floor trying to protect his head. And I was standing up, and I had a camera bag on my left shoulder. And Sugianto, as I stood up and said, you know, what are you doing? Calm down, stop it. Words to that effect, anyway. He was in such a rage. I could see that this man was out of control. And he stepped back to punch me. and I managed to move out of his way, and as he was punching, he grabbed the bag off my shoulder. And I don't know what made me do it, but I just said, no, no, you can't take that, and pulled the bag back. And it was then that he grabbed my hand, and he tried to...
And injured it quite badly.
Yeah, break the wrist, and in the process, you know,
your finger is still badly damaged, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've had how many operations on it?
One, and I've got another one in a couple of weeks. So hopefully we'll be able to fix it up. But it won't be the same. But, you know, Tim, at the time when it happened, my finger was the last thing on my mind.
How scared were you?
I was terrified. And I was terrified for Rui because before... It got so aggressive and it got so violent, and I was desperately trying to calm things down, which I think actually probably made it worse. But we were hemmed in. There must have been about, by this stage as the beating was going on, there must have been about 8 or 9 very big, they were the bodyguards in there. And, you know, the situation was very volatile. It would get very violent and then they'd stop, and then they'd ask questions, then it'd get violent again and then they'd stop. And people coming in and out.
You did fear for your life, didn't you, at various points during this ordeal?
The moment that I really thought, oh, this is it, was when Sugianto took something off the top of the television and slammed it was a pistol, slammed it down on the table in front of us. And he said to Rui, I could kill you now, and I will only get 7 years in jail, but you will be dead, which is very true. And it was at that point that I thought, oh my word. This is it. And my greatest fear at that point was that they would continue to torture Rui even more. And I knew that they would want to separate us. I don't know why, but I just thought they'll want to separate us. They won't want to keep us together. And so I was desperately trying to stay close on the couch, you know, but I was separated by these 2 great big bodyguards the whole time.
The police were brought in, weren't they?
Yeah, before the police came, actually, they'd rung a journalist who came and took photographs of us sitting on the couch with Rui bleeding and, you know, me sort of white as a sheet, I suppose. We didn't know who he was at first, but then the police came, and prior to that, they had taken all of our stuff. They'd taken our bags and smashed all our equipment and thrown it around the room and, you know, all this sort of business. And they were questioning Rui. The whole point of this, which was so interesting afterwards, is that they really believed that we were working for another company. They believed that we had done all of this so that we would sabotage their business and somebody else would benefit.
Couldn't believe that there was an environmental group who
did not understand. Did not understand.
To
we tried to tell them many, many times. Rui kept saying, you know, we're LSM, which is Indonesian for we're an NGO. I'm not working for anybody. There's nobody behind us.
How did you get out in the end?
Well, after this, we were taken to the police, and we were basically taken to the CID office, which is a small building in the town. And that was a very, very difficult first night, because...
You weren't given food, were you?
No, they were okay. These guys really looked after us. I mean, no, we weren't given food. We had to pay for it. I mean, I wasn't hungry anyway, believe me. The food was the last thing on my mind. As long as I could smoke my cigarettes, I was quite happy. But the point was that we were very confused that first night, because I wasn't sure in whose hands we were by then. And when the police came, I was just as frightened, because we realized at this point that they were very angry. They own the town, you know, and it was that we know who he owns. We know how much money he pays off everybody.
Didn't one of the thugs say to you later that if you had been a man, you'd be dead?
He said, you're lucky you're a woman. If you're a man, you would be in the same position as him and you'd be dead.
There was a lot of diplomatic activity behind the scene that eventually got you to the airport with armed motorcycle outriders.
Yeah, no, it was
They wanted
really
to be rid of you by then, didn't they?
No, they didn't. That was, unfortunately, I mean, you know, I have to say, this is when, for anybody that's watching this as an environmentalist, I'll tell you one thing about the environment movement. If you've been in it a long time, there are times when you need to pull in the chips.
Meaning?
And the favours. It's like, you know, hello, I'm in trouble, I really need help. And I was fortunate in that I could ring London, because, you know, London's waiting to hear what happened at the meeting. And I kept telling the police, if I don't ring London, there's, you know, the roof is going to come down. I had no idea what they could really do, but you say that. And I was fortunate I was taken to a public telephone exchange because the police don't have any money for phone calls. And Rui and I were in this tiny little booth with about 4 detectives, all with their pen and paper, who couldn't speak English that well. And I was just on the phone going, Dave, it's Faith. Rui and I have been beaten up, we've been kidnapped, we're in the hands of the police, I don't know what's going on, we're all right, call these people. Boom, 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 boom. And of course, he was marvellous, no panic. He's like, absolutely, are you all right? Yes, we're fine. Okay, I will do that. And that's when EIA first kicked in with the sort of network, if you like, calling round people.
And drumming up support
and
for
listen,
you.
we've got to get them out.
When you look back on this experience now, what do you think you achieved through this?
Oh, well, it catapulted the whole issue into the laps of those who are now in a position of power in Indonesia. That's the first thing it did. The second thing it did was it has allowed...
There have been revelations about slush funds, haven't there?
Oh, I mean, since this whole thing happened, the Indonesian government, in particular the new Minister for Forests, whom no one was sure about when he was first appointed, very difficult job. We have a working relationship now with those who can actually make decisions to move things on. And the first thing that we wanted very much was for them to show that there was political will to deal with this issue, because up until then there had been nothing,
so
zero.
that's back to your other role of political lobbying.
The lobbying side of it.
With the other campaigns that you have, like
exactly.
the trade in ivory,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
rhino
you know,
horn and things like that.
Yeah, it's very important. You know, decisions, policy decisions and implementation are made by governments. You have to have a relationship with the government if you want to move it. You can't, you know, just go out there, put the information out and then sit back and say, well, there it is, our job's done. No, you've got to bang on doors, you've got to lobby, you've got to be able to convince. And in this case, because of the kidnapping, the president knew what had happened to us. This government was incredibly involved in the situation. And I have to say that, you know, Britain is not known for helping its citizens in this sort of situation. You know, there's a joke in the sort of investigators world, if you like, or human rights world even, where we say, don't say you're British, say you're American or something, you know, and they'll help you better. And not in this case. The ambassador in Jakarta was absolutely incredible, as was the Foreign Office here.
You've spent 2 decades putting yourself, as I think I said earlier, in harm's way. One cause after another, nuclear arms, all sorts of things. How long are you going to go on doing this?
Well, first of all, I don't see them as causes. You know, it's a natural progression. I mean, it's all very much linked. I'm an activist, that's what I do. I'm engaged.
Professional activist.
I'm a professional activist, I suppose. I hate the word, I hate making it sound as though it sounds bad, I suppose, but it isn't. I mean, these days, thank goodness, because of people like myself and before me, way before me, that have been engaged in political activity and engaged in being in the field. You know, I can remember when we were doing the nuclear work, the anti-nuclear work, they're all communists, they're crazy, they're loonies, you know.
Don't people still say that about you?
Not so much.
Glory seekers?
Oh gosh, I wonder why they would think we were glory seekers. I mean, the pay's bad, you know, there's no pension fund. I mean, it's not about that at all.
Is there going to come a time when you'll mellow, do you think, and leave all this behind you?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose one day I might be in an armchair with my bottle of whiskey, having a good sort of, you know, think about the old times. I don't know, but it's a lifestyle. I mean, it
defines who you are.
Yes, it does pretty much. I mean, I do have another life. I mean, I don't do this 24 hours a day. I have friends.
23 and a half, you know. By the sound of it.
No, not at all. But I mean, I think if you were to talk, there are so many people in this country who work this way. I'm not unusual in that way. I mean,
it's an unusual story. Faith Doherty,
you know,
we wish you luck with the operation. Hope
thank
you
you
get
very
better
much.
soon. Thanks very much for being with us on the program.
Thank you.